All right. So here we are live with Anthony Pierri, who is the co-founder and CEO of Fletch PMM. And he also did he went from going from 0 to 140K per month only using LinkedIn organic growth. So I'm super excited to have Anthony on. So thank you for being on, Anthony.
Thanks so much for having me. Super excited to be on here as well.
So I kind of wanted to keep the momentum going, to be honest, of what we were talking about before, because your organic growth on LinkedIn just astounded me. And when I reached out to you initially, so not a flex or anything, but just I was somebody on Instagram. So I had a good amount of followers on Instagram, and it basically took that I got like four videos that went viral on Instagram that got like 1 million views, and that got me like 40K followers, and then just like the ball kept on rolling from there. But with LinkedIn, especially when you're working with B2B, and especially like correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're also working with B2B SaaS companies.
hmm
Then the, I found that the momentum is just so much harder there. Can you tell me a bit about about how you started the momentum going on LinkedIn and why exactly you chose LinkedIn?
Yeah. So I have always wanted to become some sort of audience builder. I don't want to say I wanted to become an influencer because it's been in various forms. I used to do music, still do, but I'm always in different forms trying to build audiences for different things. So I'm in a band
Mm.
right now, actually, and it's actually funny. My technically my biggest audience is on Spotify. So our band has around 125,000 monthly listeners. LinkedIn, I'm at like the 70,000 person mark, of followers. But for a really long time, tried to get big on YouTube at some level at one point. My brother and I ran a big Twitter account that had like 13,000 followers, which felt like a lot at the time. And so, always have been doing things, building audiences, building content. And for this business, LinkedIn was something that we had talked about trying, and it was always sort of put on the back burner. My co-founder and I, we met as part of this other agency that we were working at, and we were trying to figure out how do we repeatedly get in front of founders, startups that we wanted to work with. And kind of on a whim, I was like, let me try posting on LinkedIn and see what happens. So I put together this idea that I had. It was like kind of a weird idea of a post, but it was this big image. You couldn't even read it. There was so much stuff on it, and posted it, tagged some people, and the first post I did went viral. So it was like, maybe 250, 300,000 impressions, got all these followers from it, all these people commenting on it, hundreds of comments and stuff like that. And then I was like, wow, that was crazy. Maybe it was a fluke. So then I was like, I'm going to post again, maybe a day or two later. I had a different, interesting idea. I put it into a graphic. I posted it. The second one goes viral. Not quite as big, but it was like pretty big. Like it was, hundreds of thousands of
Yeah.
impressions, all these comments. And then I was like, I'm unstoppable. And then I posted again, crickets. And then it was, many months of crickets. But the initial success of the first two was like, man, maybe this is something here. And as you know, cracking any algorithm of any platform around any type of content is a slog. You can't just
Mm.
drop something in and then it works and have it stay that way. So I'm posting about all different kinds of things, all different angles, just trying to see if I can get traction among these startups. And we didn't know exactly even what we were going to sell. We just knew we wanted to sell a repeatable service to startups in the software world.
Mhm.
And so we're trying all different angles. And every other day, we'd have a new idea for what maybe we'd be selling. Because I'd do a post, or my co founder, he started posting, and we would do a post about like PLG, product led growth pricing models for software companies. And it would get a bunch of traction. And we'd be like, maybe we should sell pricing advising or something. And then we'd be like, okay, maybe that'll work. And then we'd try again, wouldn't really work. Then we tried something different. And so throwing a lot of stuff at the wall, eventually we find our way into this little corner of the software marketing world, which is you could call product positioning, and really trying to evaluate how people position their products to make them interesting and valuable to their target customers. And we were like, well, how can we evaluate the public positioning of other companies? Where would that even show up? And we were like, maybe we could just look at their websites. Maybe on their website, we could kind of gauge, is it clear what they offer, what makes them different, the value prop, all that stuff. And we would do these audits of startups that had raised a good chunk of money and basically be like, is this clear or not? And we found out very quickly it was almost never clear. And we'd be like, these people don't say anything. And it was just like cool benefit outcome over and over and over again. Increase your revenue, grow your business, transform your operations, all these like amazing outcomes. And you get to the end, you say, wait a minute, they forgot to tell me what the product is. What is this thing? So we would post these audits, and then people started reaching out, and they were like, I think I have the same problem. I can't explain my product in a succinct way. And then they would say, can you help me with my positioning as part of a website refresh? And so we're like, maybe there's something there. Product positioning plus websites or homepages. And then we teetered on those two ideas for really long. Should we just say we're web designers or copywriters? At what level of fidelity do we need to provide the result? Or do we lean more on the strategy side? We're really providing positioning. Maybe we need to offer more things than just the homepage. So we try like all these different things. And it was a long time of that process until we found this one kind of killer offer, which is a flat rate, fixed, time boxed, we call it now a sprint, where we come in, figure out the positioning, rewrite the homepage for a flat fee. And that has become the huge moneymaker. And the more projects that we would do, the more we could charge and the better our margins got, which is very anti what most freelancer agency models are. The bigger you get, usually the margins get worse because you have to hire more people and things like that. But for us, it was like the faster we got at doing this process, it was also getting better results for the clients because the framework was getting so much better. And then we were able to charge more and more. And so the margin was going up. So it's like the less time we spent per client, the better the outcome they got, the better the framework got, the more money we were making. So it was this confluence of all these things working together as we kind of stumbled around in the dark trying to find our way. But we did have like some very strong theses coming into it of basically like the type of business we wanted to build. We didn't want to do custom services. We didn't want to serve a bunch of different types of customers. We wanted to be very focused, productized, same delivery model, and high volume. So those things were kind of at the forefront of it. And then it was just like, okay, what high volume service are we going to provide? And what is the one audience? And how will we get in front of them? And so that's a long answer to your question. I'm a little rambly, as you're going to find out over this next hour.
No, but I like that. I like that because there's every time you were saying something, there was like one area that I wanted to go down, but I'm like, okay, let me take this one at a time. So the very first thing too, before I forget, is that you guys are also a small team, a pretty lean team, right?
Yes, very small. It's me and my co-founder. We have 2 copywriters that we work with primarily. And then we just hired our first product marketing positioning consultant to run the process, to extend our capacity. And it's a lady named Sarah. She lives in Europe. And so it actually opened up a bunch of new opportunities for companies that didn't work with our US time zones. So now she's getting people from like Norway and Finland and places that are like, oh, I've been waiting to work with you guys, but I couldn't because I can't do it 9 to 5, Central Time in America. And so she's been great. She's been running projects and has been killing it. So it is a small team, but the idea is to eventually get it so me and my co-founder aren't doing the delivery of every project, which is a grind, right? Now we've worked with like over 400 companies between that tiny little team. So that's like 200 projects that I've led and 200 projects that my co-founders led. So it's roughly 15 to 20 companies a month. So it's a little bit of a slog, but it's hard-earned value from the framework getting so much better from all those reps. So it's like, I don't think I would have done it another way because we would have lost the expertise, credibility, and just process being so much more robust and powerful by doing it that way.
Yeah, and especially like when you're getting off the ground and you're just trying to figure out exactly what service you want to sell. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's like better that you're more hands-on to figure out what works and what doesn't work.
Totally.
Yeah, and when you were starting off, were you only working with American clients?
No, we would work with all over, and it's sort of a crazy thing about LinkedIn is that it doesn't discriminate, right? So like you said, we get almost all of our clients from our LinkedIn content. So it's probably 95%
Mm.
5% is maybe referrals, word of mouth, people recommending, VCs, things like that. But 95% is probably LinkedIn, and LinkedIn does not just discriminate. Like, I get posts in my feed, just a funny platform, that are in different languages. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's you would think that they would even just filter. I'll see them in like Farsi and things, and I'm like, I guess LinkedIn thinks I'm much more multilingual than I am as an American with just English. But no, we would work with companies in India, Singapore, Taiwan, like all over, and I would feel so bad because the ones who would get on, I'd be like, "What time is it?" They'd be like, it's midnight, and I'd be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I feel so terrible," but they wanted to do it, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, we work in the night. That's normal."
They made the stretch for you guys.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, and with the content that you guys are producing, so I it really caught my attention, just like how you were, uh, well, how well the posts were from. I didn't take a look too much at Robert's, but I did take a look a lot at yours, especially before this live. And it's so well designed, everything. Is there somebody on your team who's designing that, or is it you guys?
It's us, and I have always been a wannabe designer. It's
Mm,
actually it goes like all the way back, like me and my really really close friend. I would do stuff with music when we were young. I would do like recording and editing and stuff like that. And he would always do design stuff. And I was always so jealous because he could sit and work all day designing and have like a Netflix show on and be like
yeah.
just watching. And I never could because I was like, I'm sitting mixing audio. I can't have something else on. So I was always so annoyed. His life was so much better because he could just sit and listen to whatever he's doing or watch whatever while he's designing. So I've always wanted to be a designer and have always found ways to try to get better at design, incorporate it in whatever job I'm in. So I think this specific style developed over time as we were making these posts. And if you go back in the early LinkedIn of when we were posting at the beginning, the design is much worse. So it was just iterating over and over and over again, finding that kind of like I think they call it neo brutalism is like the style with those like heavy drop shadows, bright colors, and which I didn't know that at the time. I'm not like some design aficionado but I discovered it later. I was like, oh, that's what we're doing. And so yeah, it developed
Yeah.
iteratively for sure.
And when you're planning out your content as well, do you plan your content out with like weeks, months anticipation, or how does it work?
Oh, it's right hot off the press. You get an idea,
Oh,
you try to visualize it, and you post it. And there's really no content calendar. There's really no thoughtful approach to like, okay, we're gonna be on this theme for the next 3 weeks. It is truly just I have an insight. I can imagine what the diagram would look like. I'm going to try to make it as fast as I can, and I'm going to post it. And that's kind of been the way we've done it since the very beginning. And at various times, we've tried to systematize it, organize it, but it comes at the speed of your insights, right? Like if I don't have 25 new incredible insights pre-baked in my head to plan out 25 posts. It's really from the work we're doing with clients. Wow, that was an interesting insight from this. We should try to codify that into a post. And an interesting thing is most of our posts actually come from handling objections or explaining a concept on a client project. So we would be in a conversation with a founder where a founder would say, well, what about this? Why doesn't that work? And we would try to explain it. We use metaphors and things like that. And we're like, man, we should just get a diagram that we can pull up. And like on the calls with founders, we use Figma, the design tool. We have this big web of like tons and tons of images that we can just scroll over to make a specific point. So someone will say, well, I've got like 4 different products. How should I position them on the homepage? I'm like, I have the framework for that. So I slide over and I show it. And so if I don't have a framework for something or Robert doesn't have a framework, we'll usually make one and then it also becomes a post. So it's like, it usually is more customer centric first and then like audience centric second. But anything we post will have been kind of battle tested with real companies to make sure that it's even helpful before we get it live.
oh, yeah, because I hear like a lot of founders too that they want everything that's a content calendar, everything scheduled, things have to be ABC. But it's also like wild that it comes right off of like the real case studies that you're doing as well. Uh, do you, even with the consistency with that, did you ever try and make it a point like I have to post like 5 times per week, or does it just like come, you just post as it comes?
More posts are usually better. For very long, we were very religious that we would post one post at either 8:30 a.m. or 9 a.m. Monday to
Yeah.
Friday. We'd skip Saturday. We'd do Sunday. And we were like, can I get out 6 posts in a week would be the gold standard. But the challenges of running a business at the same time and doing all the marketing and all the delivery of the service all at once, there's weeks where it's really crazy. We're like, I only got 2 out this week. So it was less of like some hard and fast, rigid rule of we would always do it this way. It was more like, can we try to get out at least 6? And if we can't, how many can we get out? And obviously now we are trying to onboard this new team member. So our post volume has gone down a little, but the idea is if we can onboard her well, get her fully up to speed, maybe another person get them fully up to speed, and our individual, maybe we scale back the projects we're leading, free up our time some more, then I think we'll be able to go back to posting more regularly because it's the main marketing mechanism of the business.
And are you guys thinking of introducing also paid ads?
We have talked about it, and we were also very dogmatic. We followed this guy. His name's Greg Hickman, and he had this concept. He called it the 5 ones, and I'm the worst consumer of content. I can only ever remember 4 of them. I never remember the 5th, but the 5 were 1 product or service, 1 audience, 1, and now maybe I'll only remember 3, 1 channel, and then I think it was, maybe 1 price, and then 1 year or something like that. So we were like, before, like a lot of people will say, I need to layer on 5 different channels. I need to have a newsletter. I need to have podcasts. I need to have LinkedIn content. I need paid ads. I need Google ads. And we were just very anti that. There's a company called ConvertKit, which a lot of people use with email. I was on a webinar with one of the guys from ConvertKit, and he was one of the founding members. And he was like, we got to, I think he either said 10 million or 20 million ARR on just 1 channel. And I think it was maybe newsletter or something like that. And so we're like, if you can crack a channel, you can make a lot of money and you can get a lot of clients without really needing to do other ones. So for us, we were like, we're just focused on LinkedIn and we really want to get it right. And if we can truly crack it, maybe down the line, we hire more people. And we were like, all right, we're kind of meeting the capacity of what LinkedIn can give us demand-wise. Maybe we need to turn on another channel, be it ads or a newsletter or a podcast or whatever that might be. I think we'll cross that bridge probably when we come to it. But even right now, between me, my co-founder, and our new hire, Sarah, I think all 3 of us are booked all the way to August right now. So there's not like we basically have full stack calendars of sales calls. And so at this point, there's no big need to be like, I need to turn something else on to fill the calendar. We have a lot of people who want to work with us, which is great, right? It's a great blessing for sure.
Yeah. Were you also when you were initially just like getting the ball rolling with LinkedIn, was it just 100% post, or were you like commenting, reaching out? How much does that play a role in it too?
Commenting for sure. Everyone, still to this day, we try to as best as we can respond to everybody. So, and obviously it's hard to do when you have lots and lots of comments, but I will still go through and try to give even a small response to everyone who comments on our posts. I will also try to comment on other people's posts as I'm scrolling because I am trying to stay up to date with what's happening in the space. And there's big trends and things like that you can obviously sort of pull from, especially in the early days. We were looking for trends that we could jump on, give our opinion on memes or infographics that were getting shared and people had their hot takes in them. So that was a lot of stuff we were doing early days. But no, direct outreach, we see that as kind of another channel, right? Content marketing on LinkedIn is one. Direct cold outreach to people or warm outreach really would be another motion in our opinion. And when we don't have that as part of our repertoire of things that we would do. Doesn't mean we wouldn't do it down the line, but as of now, we don't really do that at all.
Yeah, because that's another thing that got to me too. When people, when you're sending cold messages out on LinkedIn, I really wonder what the conversion is on that, because I feel like everybody's initial reaction is just to brush it off and be like, I don't need the service even before going into it. Do you think that affects people?
Yeah, I mean, I think potentially, and it all depends on how you do it. So actually, it was interesting. Before we did LinkedIn content-wise, we actually did try doing outreach. And at this point, we were still part of this other business. It was me, Robert, and this other guy named Eirik. And Robert and Eirik really actually championed this. They created this way that was, the conversion rate was unbelievably high. And it was like with high level executives of these companies would be like, I want to meet. Let's meet today. And basically what they would do is they would pick a hyper specific corner of the world. Like they would say, I'm going to look at data mining and data scraping software tools. And then they would build out, they called them like ecosystem maps, where they would basically like map out all the different vendors, all the different types of tools for a specific like space, like data mining or whatever it might be. They create this report, and then they would send it in the cold outreach to the CEOs or whoever of these companies in the little corner. And the first couple, they would say, I've created this ecosystem map. It includes people like you, these other things. I'd love to talk with you on a call, get your take on it. And they would be like, oh, interesting. And so some people would hop on. And then the moment that they would get some of them to hop on and give feedback on it, they would then name drop those people to the people that they were reaching out to in the space. So it was like they would get a list of like 200 companies that were so tightly related that they would have all known each other. And then they would do this super tailored 200 company outreach list. And they would book like 50, maybe 50 or more meetings out of the 200. So it was like crazy conversion rate. And it shows the power of like specificity, segmentation. You send out a big mass thing where you're like, hey, do you need help with software development? Can I help you with my custom solutions? Nobody gives a rip. But if you do hyper-specific stuff, you create some value on the front end. Like you could really book meetings. And so, he would be like, oh, I just talked to so-and-so, the CEO of X company that's like the person's for sure familiar with because we're looking at a tiny pool. And the idea was we didn't know what we were going to sell at that point. And it was like, can we get in front of these people, show some value, and then try to tease out what might be things that they're struggling with? So that was like the first route. And it sort of broke down because we could never quite figure out what the service would be. So we were able to get calls, but we didn't have anything to pitch. And so that didn't end up really working. And it was only once we switched to doing LinkedIn, the content-wise, putting out the ideas that it like attracted people with specific problems. And it was almost like a better way to gauge what people actually were struggling with. But it was super funny. My co-founder, Rob, he was doing the same strategy with this ecosystem map. And it was around these, they call them headless CMS. So it was like content management solutions. And there was these like headless was like they work with any existing website platform or things like that. He had so many high-level conversations and high-quality conversations with these people. He got asked to present at like an headless CMS conference as an expert. And he had just learned about the category like a month prior. And he got on stage, gave a talk, and everyone was like, that was amazing. Like, how did you become so knowledgeable in this space? And it was like, it's just so funny. Like what everyone doesn't do is pick a specific group of people and learn their world and then try to provide value. Everyone wants to stay as broad as possible, always. And it was just hilarious to see how fast you can gain credibility if you're like, I'm just going to focus on one little corner of the world. And he was able to get on as this expert. And it was, we laugh about it to this day because he was like, brand new, speaking like CEOs who've been in this field for 20 plus years. And they were like, this is so interesting and insightful and things like that.
So there's two areas I wanted to take this conversation down. The very first one is just in terms of like, let's say that people have this like really good service. Somebody has a very good service, but they just need to put it in front of a specific audience. What route do you think that they should take? You think that they should take the route of maybe your previous company of, hey, let's look into like these super niche and see how they can tie together and book meetings. We already have the service. Or should they just start growing the brand on a specific platform where their ICP's on? Which one would you weigh over the other?
If I had to choose, I mean, so this is we follow a guy named David C. Baker. He gives like really good advice to solopreneurs, freelancers, agencies, creative firms, things like that. He has this podcast called Two Bobs. And there's one episode where the episode on the podcast, I think it was called like, you don't have to eat your veggies or something like that. And it was basically talking about like, how do you solve that distribution problem? How do I get, if I have something I want to do, how do I get the word out? And basically people think, well, I'm going to have to do cold outreach, and I hate cold outreach. Or I'm going to have to do networking, and I really hate networking. Or I'm going to have to write and create content, but I hate doing that. And he's basically like, the one that you choose as your distribution should be the one that you'll do. And he's like, he was talking about himself. He's like, I won't do cold outreach. You can't force me to do it. And I just won't do it. And like, if I say I'm going to do it, I won't really do it, and I won't do it well. And there's other people who, like, a friend of mine, her name's Tass. She's totally network led growth. She's on LinkedIn. She doesn't post that often, but she comments on everything. And people are like, I've been seeing your comments and I wanted to be friends with you. And then they buy her service and they see what she does. And then we are speaking and writing and content. Like, that's our space, right? I'm not good at networking events. I'm not good at, making small talk and talking to people at the bar and stuff, and like making introductions. I'm not good at that. The founder of our previous company, he was great at that. The company was doing like $8 million a year, all from just him meeting people. And he would go to conferences, make friends, and things like that. So one part of your question is around just like what channel to do. You should do the channel that you're going to do well. And we've talked about, like, and I don't actually know if Robert even agrees with this, but I'm like, the channel, especially if you're like a small business, the channel that is right for your business is the one that you're going to be able to do well. And like, there's an alternate universe where Fletch, our business, got big from cold outreach because one of us was really good at cold outreach. There's nothing to say that wouldn't have worked. Your second half of the question, though, is what if I don't have an offer? I don't know exactly what I want to sell. What should I do then? In that case, you need to anchor your business on something. So for us, like, we knew we wanted to work with startups. We didn't know exactly what the service was going to be. And so the content, posting different things, helped to gauge what people might be interested in. And then when they came to us, what we didn't do was say, well, tell me about your problems and let's build a custom solution to solve it. What we would always do is people would come to us and we would pitch them a service as if it has always existed. We would be like, oh yeah, it sounds like you're struggling with this. We have this offer. It's $5K. Here's exactly what you get, and see if they'd buy it. And sometimes they would, and we would do these weird one-off projects, and sometimes they wouldn't. And we'd be like, maybe that doesn't really make sense. But we would basically pitch a predefined package service as if it was something we had sold a bunch of times, because we did not want to go into custom scope land where it's like, we take in your requirements, we build it out, we think about pricing, we're trying to do value-based pricing, something like that. It was always, no, what is going to be the productized, repeatable offer? Maybe it's a pricing service. Maybe it's a sales deck service. Maybe it's a homepage service. Maybe it's you could list 10 more things of what that might be. But yeah, so that's how I think. It's like, if you need to figure out what you're going to sell, you do need to get around these people, in front of them, and have a chance to pitch. And so whether that's going and speaking at conferences and then having people come up to you, whether it's writing on LinkedIn, whether it's, some sort of version of that cold outreach that we did, I think that's going to depend on your personality, what types of things you'd want to do.
And talking now in terms of the ICP and determining exactly who your ICP is for this, I was starting off, I was like, I kept it super, super broad, and hopefully my co-founder is also listening to this live stream so she can hear this part too. But when we were on Instagram and on Facebook, I was super broad. I'm like, we just do marketing for everyone. And it's good because you get the ball initially rolling for money coming in. But I stopped being so broad, and that's why, like, we started to hone in on LinkedIn, because that's where we saw our ICP being. How important do you think it is to find your ICP from the start, and how did you even come up with exactly who your ICP was?
Yeah, I think you can start broader for sure, and it's a double-edged sword though, because if you start broad, the content you produce. So actually, let me frame it slightly different. I think your company's public positioning at the beginning can be broad. Our first tagline was, we help founders market hard to market products. What does that mean? People loved it. That's me. So it was, in some ways it was specific, but in some ways it was incredibly general. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And what does market mean? Right? Like, are you guys ghostwriters? Do you run paid ads? Like, what, so the specifics of the service were never really there. So I think if you're going to stay broad, the content pieces you create, each individual one should be very specific, as if you just did one thing. you could try a bunch of different specific things to see what resonates. What you should not do is post broad content, like saying, it is so difficult to market. Marketing is really difficult. You got to do lots of different stuff. We're here to help. That is going to resonate with no one. But you could stay very broad in the sense of like, we help people market hard to market products. And then each post is like, here's the problem with how you set the pricing of a product-led growth SaaS company. And this is a better way of thinking about doing the pricing. That would be pretty good to sell a pricing service. And we're like, maybe that's the thing we're going to sell. Do another one that's like, this is the main 5 ways that people screw up their homepages. That's a great way to sell a homepage rewrite, right? This is the wrong way to build a sales deck. So like when I think back to it, it's like we had a broad array of things we were testing, but every single thing we were testing was hyper specific, as if it was for one really, really niche group.
And I don't want to like, this is just like to put an example too, because I think that this might be like kind of bashing this group on LinkedIn, but it's not positive, constructive criticism.
For sure.
That I see a lot of posts on LinkedIn that they're very broad. They're very, from how I see it, it's like motivational quotes and motivational carousels, and then probably very broad design concepts. And uh, I'm not exactly sure what they're trying to do, because maybe they're trying to do something that I just don't understand. But at least if you're trying to sell a service, do you think that that's also part of the game plan, like putting these like very, very broad uh, motivational quotes, or is there like a time and place for everything? Like it's never a hard no, but
I
timing's
think,
important.
yeah, I think I see the most people that I see doing that are people who have already made a very successful career, and
Mm,
like it's like everyone ends at Simon Sinek's fortune cookie posts. Like if you're successful, you will write a book that goes New York Times bestseller like he did, the whole start with why concept, and then you kind of get on the yacht, you sail out into the sunset, and you fire off fortune cookies. So I think there's one group. And then I think newcomers are like, what should I post? Let me look at what do the big people do. And they see the fortune cookie and go, maybe I should do a fortune cookie. And then they post and have their, aspirational, weird, most motivational stuff. To me, I don't think that belongs anywhere until you've got the yacht. When you've got the yacht, do whatever the hell you want, right? For all of us who are like, I kind of still want to, I need a business that makes money and has a service that people buy, and then I take that money and pay for my house and my car and things like that. Any of those people, I do not think that they should be doing the fortune cookies.
I'm gonna put that as one of the quotes. Until you have the yacht, don't be posting the fortune cookies.
For sure.
No, that's awesome. Because I guess everybody needs to start like selling something, and correct me if I'm wrong with this, everybody needs to start selling something to somebody very specific, and then go broad and go to like a broader market reach. Is that kind of what you would recommend somebody just like starting from the ground up? The more
Yeah, I mean,
specific, the better.
for sure. And I think if you think about it, like take a software example like Amazon.
Hmm.
Why did
Oh yeah.
Amazon launch with books? Because it's way easier to think about all the logistics of selling a bunch of books online than it is to think about the logistics of selling every possible item you could imagine. So once they had become the market leader in books on online sales, like we forget this. Amazon's biggest competitor at one point was Barnes and Noble. And everyone was like, do you think this scrappy upstart is going to be able to take down big, bad Barnes and Noble? And now we're like, Barnes and Noble is like, they're the last of a dying breed. They're tiny. I think they're making a comeback now, but and Amazon's like the biggest company in the world or whatever. So I think at one level you have to start simple. And here's the challenge: is that if you are talking to freelancers, solopreneurs, it's not apparent to most of them that to scale any one of these offers is going to require way more operational lift than they're imagining. And so a metaphor we've used is like, imagine you want to say, well, one person wants me to help them figure out the pricing of their product. You should think about that, offering that service. You should only offer that service if you could imagine yourself doing it 10 or 20 or 30 more times. You should think about it akin to a B2C company being like, I'm going to spin up a factory that builds bicycles to sell. And then when someone else says, I would love if you would help us rewrite our homepage or our website, is that something you would want to sell 30 more times? And if it
Mm.
is, think about it like, okay, I've got my bicycle factory. Do I want to create another factory, completely different factory with different delivery model, and like, that sells maybe shoes or something, or makes shoes? The shoe factory and the bicycle factory are not the same. They're very different. And because humans are so flexible, they can say, wow, what's the big deal? Why can't I offer both those things? I could do a project about pricing and I'll do another one on shoes. But the scale is where it will break. You can do custom services different for each person. Your margin will be horrible as you get bigger because you're just going to eventually be paying people and then adding a little bit on top and slicing it. And the problem is, the more factories you have, the harder it is for people to remember what you do and to recommend you. Like I've said before, me and Rob, we've posted thousands of times around product positioning for homepages, tens of millions of impressions. To become known in just that one tiny slice, to be a big fish in a hyper-specific pond, has taken tens of millions of impressions, thousands of posts. If we also wanted to be a big fish in a different small pond for people to think of us, we don't have the bandwidth to do that, right? To do anything repeated, you need pipeline. And so I've even, there was another podcast that was talking about Fletch, and they were saying, a lot of people who try to do productized, they're like, it's such a grind having pipeline. I have to go find more people to make this business. We don't have to find anyone because we've been so hyper-specific, so focused, and have become known for one thing. It's the same thing like starting two businesses. I want to be known for the best bicycles in the world, and I want to be known for the best shoes in the world. How unbelievably challenging would that be as a small business with a small team? So it's the same dynamic of solopreneurs and freelancers and service providers. They just don't realize it because they could spin up one. It's like, to them, it's like, yeah, we could make one single prototype, but to make a repeatable business that has repeatable pipeline for both those things is going to require such a big lift that people are just simply not aware of what's in front of them. To be able to get to have an inbound stream of clients for anything is going to be way more effort than they're imagining.
And do you believe in the concept too of going viral on LinkedIn or going niche viral on LinkedIn?
It's, to me, I think some level of virality in the absolute sense is really, really helpful, right? There's the niche viral idea of as long as the people in my niche see it, that's enough. I think that helps to a point. But I think if you're trying to go beyond just getting clients from referrals in your network, I think you have to actually kind of truly go viral as well. Because the bigger your follower count, the more credibility you have, the more people that get in front of you that want to buy your service. And I think there's something that happens where you become a known quantity for something. And I think too many freelancers discount that. And again, this is all dependent on your personality and what motivates you and what type of business you want to build. I think for us, we wanted to be world-renowned experts. And you just are not going to be able to do that in a really broad field. It's going to have to be something more specific. And so for us, going so niche has allowed us to become on the short list. When people think of product positioning for B2B software companies, there's two people who come to mind. It's usually me and my co-founder and a lady named April Dunford. We're the main ones that everyone thinks of on every list. Every ranking, those are the people that people think of when they think of that in that hyper-specific thing. If you broaden it and said, who are the top 10 marketing influencers? We're not on that list. You could go to the top 1,000. We're not on that list. You go to the top 100,000. We might not even be on that list, right? Because we are not known for the big, broad bucket that Simon Sinek owns, or any of those people. I'm blanking. Seth Godin, right? Those people own marketing. I can't compete with Seth Godin. He's a 10-time New York Times bestselling author. I can compete with other tiny micro influencers who are in the same bracket as us in this tiny little corner of the world.
Yeah. And I think that even myself included, I won't even just keep it broad, but I was just so worried about it before because I'm like, if you have like one competitor, or if I go like super niche, then there's not enough market space for my specific niche. What do you have to say if somebody says something like that?
Well, the thing is interesting is that worry comes up a lot in the software companies that we work with, and
Mm,
most of them have taken venture capital. So these are people who are like, we're going to be the next Facebook or the next Salesforce. And for them, absolute size of market is a really big factor. If they're like, I told my investors I'm going to be a $1 billion company and I'm going after a market that's only 50 million, like that's an issue. So for them, they will truly eventually run out of road, as they say, right? Like they will need to expand to other places or start with a bigger market from the beginning. With service providers, that's not the case. Like the biggest competitor for us is not even really a competitor. Is this, like I said before, her name's April Dunford. She's like a huge influence to us. We really look up to her. We've read her books. When we started the business, we were using her model, and then we've changed it over time. Now it's completely different. But she has never come up in a deal. I don't think even maybe once in 400. She never comes up because she works with, I don't know, 10 to 12 companies a month, or sorry, 10 to 12 companies a year. And there are tens of thousands of startups. So we will never run out of companies to work with. And we will never be able to service them all because we are humans, not software. So there's a misguided assumption that like the market size is going to be too small. It almost never is as a service provider because unless you're like, you know, I only serve people who live in my apartment building. See, okay, maybe there's 20 people, like the 20, you're going to run out of pretty quick. But nobody's doing that, right? They're like, oh, I want to do web design. Is that too small? It's like, no. And you could even get smaller than that, right? I just want to do the logo. Is that too? No, or I just want to do logos for dentists. How many dentists are there? More than you could ever work with in a lifetime, right? So
yeah.
any segment that you pick as a human doing a service-based business is going to be bigger than you could ever service in many lifetimes.
Yeah. So the problem isn't going niche specific. It's usually finding what your service is and how you're going to present this to
Yep.
whoever
How are
your
you going to get
audience
in front
is.
of those people? And honestly, the bigger problems are internal in your brain. They are usually ego related. I don't want to pigeonhole myself. I have so many things that I'm good at. How could I ever just do one of them? I'm cutting off
Mm,
all these amazing things I could provide and just do one thing. That's usually the biggest challenge to this. I don't want to just do that. And like the more talented and the more creative you are, the harder that is to do. Like my co-founder, he's got a storied career. Like he worked at Oracle. He was like a big startup. He was at the startup that got acquired. He has all this experience in all these different places. He was in sales for a while. He was in product management for a while. And so for him, he was like, do I really just want to be known for positioning? And it was like a really difficult decision for him. And for
mm,
me, I had a long career not in tech at all. And I'm like, if I could just be known for one thing, that's enough. I don't care what it is, If I could be good at sales or whatever, that's great because it was a career pivot. So I didn't have that baggage. But I think a lot of people who are very, very talented and can do a lot of things, the hardest thing is not figuring out which one. It's being okay with the fact that like this is what I'm going to be known for. And we try to like reduce that barrier. Like when we coach people on this stuff, like we basically say every specialist is also a generalist. They just are marketing themselves as a specialist. Just because you're marketing one aspect of your personality does not mean that you're not good at all these other things. And discount you as a person, right? Like you're just saying, I think there's an opportunity to build a scalable business around one of these offers, and
yeah.
I'm going to go into it.
Yeah. And now just in terms of the algorithm too, because I want to keep it within time, but I have so many questions that I want to ask. So in terms of the posting that you do, um, I don't know if you've heard that like there's a change in the algorithm and people are like losing views and people are just worried about what's to come from LinkedIn, especially if they put like all their eggs in one basket for LinkedIn. But algorithms come and go. I've experienced it myself on Instagram. What do you have to say to people who are worried about the algorithm change right now on LinkedIn? And have you experienced it yourself as well?
It definitely. I mean, it's the same overarching pattern that happens on every single platform. As people realize how lucrative a platform is, more people create content, and the platform becomes more saturated, and it becomes harder to break through. There's a guy I follow. His name's Jeremy. I don't know how to say his last name. He's the co-founder of a company called Favicon. It's Favikon, and they do all this like LinkedIn influencer marketing type stuff. He posted this the other day. He said, most people don't realize how small LinkedIn's creators scene still is. There's only 150,000 nano and micro creators between 5,000 to 50,000 followers. Compare that to 2 million on Instagram, 1.8 million on YouTube, 650,000 on TikTok. And it says, so that's tiny, which means one thing, there's still huge room to grow for both brands and creators. If you think you're late, you're actually super early. So I think people who got in at the really early stages of LinkedIn, like when I think back to those first posts, like in the old school LinkedIn, like 3 years ago, it was like you just post anything and it would just fly. It was like just open season, It has definitely changed. It is harder, but like on average, a decently thought out post that me and my co-founder do in the old days would get 50,000 impressions. Now it will get 15 or 20. So if you think you want to get onto a platform and you want to sell to business owners, I don't think there's a better one than LinkedIn for a lot of types of businesses. Some businesses I think make more sense for Instagram, like if it's more like truly B2C type stuff. But if you're doing B2B anything, I think LinkedIn is still the best place. And being able to post something that took you 2 hours, 3 hours to do and have it be seen by 15 or 20,000 people, you're not paying for it. It's free, right? You know what I mean? Like to get the paid ads equivalent of those impressions would be very expensive. So I don't think people should discount LinkedIn because it is becoming harder, because every platform becomes harder. Maybe we'll get a new one. I don't know what the next one's going to be. Is it, Blue Sky or one of these other things or something from left field? But I still think it is early. And like I said, I think I can't remember if I said this on live now or before we went live, but my brother, he started posting a year ago and he had 0 followers and he's been doing really thoughtful content, highly nicely designed images and carousels for around public speaking. And he's already over like, I think 24,000 followers a year later. So that in a single year. So it's like,
Whoa.
It's still an incredibly powerful platform for people to start on even today. And that was 1 year ago. And I don't think it's like so drastically different a year from now. I think someone starting today could also build an audience relatively quick.
And your brother, how often is he posting?
He posts a lot. And he posts probably 4 or 5 times a week and is doing, like big thoughtful posts. So it's a time investment.
Yeah.
But that's the trade-off. It's the fact that you're getting it for free. Like LinkedIn, you don't have to pay. They don't owe you anything, right? So it's like the more time you think about these posts and make them really good, the more likely they're going to get seen by a lot more people. Like the algorithm is pretty good in some ways of like elevating good, thoughtful content. There's also just such a small quantity of good, thoughtful content on LinkedIn in general that any good, thoughtful content will probably get pushed. And then to this, what we were talking about before, I think the more specific and niche of the content actually ends up getting more reach because it is more helpful and less generic feeling. Like if you do a post that's like, here's why marketing is hard and here's why it can be better. Like it's just not going to go anywhere because it's so vague. People are like, I'm not working on marketing. I'm working on running a LinkedIn ad campaign, or I'm working on writing a homepage. And so when the content is a little bit more specific to what people actually would conceptualize themselves as doing, it usually has a better chance of getting promoted. And like my brother's content, he posts about public. His whole angle for the first probably 10,000 followers was helping technically minded like founders give their first keynote talk. So it was like, hey, you're in a tech company, you've been asked to speak as the CTO on your cool new sexy company, and you've never given a talk before. I'll help you nail your first conference talk. And that was all the content was related to that. And it was flying. And that's hyper specific. That's like one person in one moment in their life dealing with one problem, and it was enough that people were like, wow, that's me. And there's so many people who are in that bucket that it was able to get a lot of traction.
Yeah. So maybe even with LinkedIn, it's like you were saying, maybe this whole live stream, it's like the more specific you go for LinkedIn, maybe that's where it's at for this platform.
I think so. And again, the audience has to be here. Like, there
Mm,
are certain types of startups and companies that are on Twitter and not LinkedIn. Like, for example, if you post design related content on LinkedIn, like about good design versus not good design, I don't think it gets nearly as much traction as Twitter does, because I think many of the designers are on Twitter, and like design Twitter is like a really established community. Same thing with like developer tools. Like, people who go on LinkedIn are like, I want to sell to other businesses and I want to, like, that's my audience. So if you're selling to consumers or you're doing dev tools or you're doing design, like, I just don't think they're on LinkedIn as much. So it really is, choosing a channel can be dependent on the group of people. But, I personally gravitate towards the channel's going to be like. I would go channel first over audience first, because if you can crack a channel, monetizing it will be pretty easy, right? Whether that's YouTube or Instagram, if you can get a big following on any channel. So it's like we were very agnostic of like what the service was going to be,
mm,
knowing that if we could figure out something that really was a good content flywheel that people would really resonate with, it would be a lot easier to do it than being like, okay, I have this perfectly designed service and it's for a group of people that I have no idea how I'm going to reach. Like, it's like, maybe change the service, do something different.
yeah. And okay, I think I can squeeze one more question here. We'll try two, but let's see. One for sure. The other one is, so you started your own company. You're co-founder of your company, and as the company grows more and more, how would you now and in the future, how would you divide your time versus uh, being a part of the service creation process versus be the one who is front and center creating the content for LinkedIn? Would you be more in the service space of your service, creating it, manufacturing it, making sure it's like better, or would you like to keep on like designing the posts that you design on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think it's going to be stages. So our ultimate goal is to operationalize the delivery, so we could not do any delivery. Will that ever happen fully? I think it's possible. Maybe we're doing one project a month, like hands on. Where right now we're each doing, like 8 or 10, and it's a lot, right? So if we say we're going to do one project a month, then the next phase in between, once we've operationalized it, would probably be marketing heavy, is taking up a lot of our time. But on the back end, what we're also trying to do is to make the business itself more robust and not just reliant on our personal brands. Because, if we ever want to sell the company or whatever, right? Like, it can't be just, I want to work with Anthony and Rob. It has to be like, I want to work with Fletch because it's a good brand and a good company. So we have a lot of things we're going to try to do to basically make it so that we spread out the brand credibility to the other team members, to the business itself, where eventually we wouldn't have to be the ones posting either. And then at that point, you really have a fully defensible business that has a go-to-market muscle that can bring in clients without us being the main face of it, and without us doing the delivery. And so that's the long-term goal. It will likely happen in stages if we can pull off each of those changes, because they're big changes and lots of unknowns in exactly how we're going to do it. Like, we've seen other agencies follow similar models over multiple years and have done it successfully, from like, it was all founder brand to now it's the company, and then the founder steps out and does something else. So that would probably be the path we would try to do.
Yeah, because now that you mentioned that, I remember commenting on, I don't know if it was your post or somebody else's post, but I commented on like someone said that the founder-led branding was gonna die out, and that if you like step away, literally exactly what you just said right now. And I commented on your post of like, so how do you guys think you're gonna do that? And you commented on something replying like, when we figure it out, I'll let you know.
Yeah,
So
the guy we look to, his name's Chris Walker,
yeah,
huge
yeah,
following. He's,
yeah,
you've
no.
probably seen him.
Mhm.
He started a business called Refine Labs, and it was all around his personal brand. And the way that he solved it was investing in getting every employee to become like a known quantity on LinkedIn. And there's
Mm.
risks in doing that because you're like, well, once they get their own following, what's going to keep them here? They could just go and be their own consultant, keep all the money. And most of them do. They'll do like 2 years at Refine. They'll post, they'll get a big following, and then they'll be like, I'm going solo, and they'll make a ton of money. And they'll usually put in their LinkedIn, bio, like X Refine Labs. But I think Chris, and I haven't talked to him about this, but I think if I imagine the strategy was it doesn't really matter because if you have people who become known quantities, the flywheel is other people then want to work for them. And then you see great content from all these different faces, and the only commonalities are all Refine. So it eventually spreads the credibility from just one guy to a big group of people. And then more people want to work there, more people want to get big followings from working there. And then eventually he was able to step out of the business altogether. And I think I don't know if he still has, he probably has some ownership stake of it, but he hired a CEO and is totally out. And so it can be done. And that's probably the strategy we're going to try to do is to empower the people we hire to become, LinkedIn quantities, known quantities. And then ideally that creates a flywheel for this.
Yeah, because they have a new CEO now, Megan Brown, who's like also doing uh, posts on her LinkedIn.
Bowen, I think maybe is her last name.
Or Bowen, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the uh the final question to wrap it up. Okay, really tried to keep it within I tried to keep it within time. I'm bad at this because I still have a lot of questions I want to ask. But this is a more personal question now. So if you could go back to your 20-year-old self when you were just starting off in your career, what piece of advice would you give them?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. That's a really good piece of advice. I think it would be I was very like jumping from one thing to another. So for example, I was in like I said before, I've been in a lot of bands. I had one band I was in when I was like maybe we started when I was like 11 and we broke up when I was like 15 or 16. So it was me and my older brother. We start this band together. Not the same one who posts on LinkedIn. I have several brothers. So we start this band together and we do it for like 4 or 5 years. And we grew like to the audience of the local venues we would play. Like we were basically headlining local shows of maybe 200-300 people would come. And we were in high school. So this was like sick, right? We're like, this is amazing. We're playing in front of 300 people. We're selling out these little venues and stuff in our town. And then after that, we were like, I'm kind of getting bored of this. Let's start something else. So we'd start a new band. And the new band would be a slightly different genre or something. And then it wouldn't take off. And then we start something else. And then that wouldn't really take off. And then we start something else. And I think the thing that in my head was like, well, if you just get the right idea, that's kind of what matters. And what I've learned from doing this business is the power of focusing on one thing for an extended period of time. That's really what the unlock is. And so like even with our current band, we started maybe 3 years ago, and we basically had the same thesis that we have with the Fletch business. We were like, we're going to make music for one specific group of people in one specific genre that we think we have some competitive advantages in. And then it was like, first year we had like 2,000 or 3,000 monthly listeners. Then the next one, it was like, maybe 10,000. And then it was like 20,000. And then it like started ramping up. And then now we're like, 120 or so. And at any of those points, we could have bailed and be like, this is the wrong idea. Maybe we should have done a different type of band. It's not going to work. And the funniest thing is the songs that generate the most growth for the band are some of the oldest ones. So it was like, it was the right idea from the beginning. And it just takes time to get traction in anything. And so with Fletch, it's playing out the same way. It's like we could have pivoted 10 different times. Maybe we do sales decks. Maybe we do whatever. There's so many different services and offerings we could have pivoted to, but we were relentless about saying just focused on one. And, did I have to wait until my 30s to learn that lesson? Probably not. Imagine where we'd be if I had picked one thing when I was 20. And we'd be, 13 years beyond that, how big of a business I could be running today. So I think that's probably what I would go back and be like, just pick something, go for it, and stop pivoting, stop thinking that it's like, if we just tweak the idea, it's probably going to be in the long-term execution that really makes the difference.
That's a really good one. All right. Well, I do want you to plug the band name in though, but I'm gonna give you the outro and then all of your plugs, please. So this is thank you so much, Anthony, for jumping on the live stream with us. Is there anywhere that people can find you and your band?
Yeah, so me on LinkedIn would be a great place to start. You can check out our company's website, fletchpmm.com. That's where you see like exactly what we do. And then the band is called Good Hangs, and it's like a Blink 182 pop punk inspired early 2000s, emo you might want to call it. It's all in that vein. And so yeah, check us out on Spotify.
Well, thank you so much, Anthony Pierri, and really hope to have you on again. Thank you so much.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. All right, and we